Hey, how you doing? I'm going to talk about different types of paddleboard leashes. Leash is a very important thing to have on your paddleboard, but the only time you probably don't need a leash is if you're actually doing yoga or fitness on a board. But if you are doing either one, you might paddle to that location, and it's a wise idea to have a leash. The purpose of a leash is when you fall off the board, it's not always guaranteed that the board's going to be right next to you when you land. If it's windy out, if there's current, or otherwise, or surf, then it's a pretty good chance that board's going to get away from you. And you got to ask yourself, how far can you swim to shore? And if it's cold out, how far can you swim in cold conditions with a t-shirt on versus a proper wetsuit? So in either case, as I always say, it's good to stay off the 5 o'clock news. And in doing so, wear a leash is a very simple way to do that. We see a ton of people who don't wear leashes, and we're often shocked because they're often less experienced paddlers who don't think anything's going to happen to them. But unless you can predict the future, then you don't really know the answer to that question. So those of us who are experienced do wear leashes because we understand the bigger picture of what can happen. And I could come up with several stories of paddlers from all over the world who have fallen off in sometimes really big conditions, sometimes flat conditions, and they didn't have a leash, or the leash broke because they didn't install it properly. And basically, the authorities found their board, they didn't find the person, or in some cases, people swam 2 to 3 miles back to shore because they lost their board. So if you want to avoid that, it's just a very simple thing to wear your leash. Unfortunately, in the U.S., leashes are not required, so we do see a lot of people who say it's not required. Don't tell me what to do. I'm not going to wear a leash. So whatever it is, each his own. But I'm going to wear a leash personally. I like to stay off the news. So we have two different types of leashes for the most part. It's going to be a coiled leash like this, or a straight leash like the one down here. A coiled leash is going to not catch things behind me when I paddle. It's going to, I actually attach my leash to my waist, so it stays out of the way. I can walk around on the board and not stand on the leash. A straight leash like this is going to drag behind you and catch lake milfoil, kelp beds, logs, rocks, you name it. And if you're paddling pretty quickly and your leash gets caught on something underneath, it's going to throw you forward and you're going to face plant on the board. So to avoid that, most of us use a coiled leash. And there's a few different options. There's a few coiled leashes that are half coiled and half straight. In the end, as long as that thing is not in the water, dragging behind you, slowing you down, and or catching stuff, then you're good. And also, so with the one time I do wear a straight leash is when I'm in surf. If I fall off the board in the surf and I've got waves coming through, a coiled leash is going to most likely bounce the board back at my head, which is the direction it's going to go. A straight leash is going to have less bounce or less pull in the water in that environment. So I use a straight leash for surf, and then I use a coiled leash for flat water. In a river environment or current, then in that case, it's a very wise idea to attach your leash to your waist. If your foot gets caught in some logs or rocks, which is called foot entanglement, if you fall in the water off your board and your leash gets caught on some bushes on the side, well, I can tell you a lot of fatality scenarios where people fell off in rivers and their leg got caught in something, their leash got caught on something, and as a result of the water flowing past them at waist deep at speed, a very strong current, they were unable to reach and grab and reach their to get the leash off their ankle. If it's on your waist here, in this case, my little side straps here, I'll take the main kind of larger section of this, slide it through, put the top over, squish it, make sure it's good, and then I get my hands free. I can walk on my board and not step on my leash. And if I need to get out quickly, all I gotta do is that, and I'm done. We're not going to talk about rivers here, but basically in a river environment, paddlers will have an additional strap around a vest life jacket like this. That is, the strap itself is on quick release, so you can quick release the strap and or quick release from here. And then some of these leashes now have quick release leashes where you can actually, the middle of the leash has a lever and you can separate the leash. So that's 3 different ways to get out your leash. But for the most part, this works really well. And the one good thing to think about is keep a little extra here, so you have a little bit of a pull. This one doesn't have much to work with, so I'm going to keep that extra, and I got a little extra pull on there. And when I'm underway, I just push this to the back, and it's out of my way. I can still paddle, and my leash won't be in my way of paddling. So I have two different types of boards here. Leashes will fit on each board differently. On the inflatable here, you can attach your leash to the strap here, or you can attach it to these D-rings here. If you don't have a strap, then you probably have a D-ring, and that works fine. On a fiberglass board like this, then you have a leash cup or a leash plug in the back. In that case, in order to get your leash on, what you'll do is, number one, you need to install a string. This is either parachute cord or any sort of good rope. Even a shoelace will work. So I have this string. It has a loose string, and then I make a little loop out of it. Then I'll take the string, and you got the pin here. I'm going to put this through the pin, and it's hard to get through sometimes, so I'm going to use a screw or a scissors to help out. A key might work if you don't happen to have scissors. That's going to go through like that. I'm going to bring that through, close that off, and then I have a nice loop. Not all boards come with this string, so often you have to add your own. And then this part of the leash is what goes in. I'm going to go in like that, that, and that. I'm going to squish it together, and I'm going to test it. And that's a really safe way to do that. So I want it to break here in the parking lot or in my backyard. I don't want it to break on the beach or in the water for that matter. So that's been pretty good. So I do that every time I go out. The same way it would work on the inflatable here. In this case, I like to use the handle, squish it, and test it. So that's a really good way to make sure you stay off the news. You also want to make sure you clean your gear. You clean these off, and so the Velcro, unlike this, has a bunch of grass in it, that this stays clean so you have the best grip possible. And you want to make sure all these swivels, there's two swivels in here, that these are clean as well. There's a swivel down there. So keeping your gear clean is going to keep you safer in the long run. Alright, thanks for watching.